G'day guys, today we're going to do a little bit of a exploration of the Caledonian goldfields. So we're at Smith Gully, and what we're looking at here is the market square and the miners' camp. So in 1854, a fellow named Boston, an American, and two Scotsmen discovered gold here. Shortly after, there was around 700 miners on this site, and at its peak there was around 3,000 miners all digging away here in various ways, and you will get to see a lot of that in the coming video. Okay, this is the former site of the State Battery, which officially opened in 1919. Operated for approximately 50 years and had a 5-head stamper. There's a weir that I'll take you down to in a few minutes, and we'll go have a look at that. But unfortunately, in 1962 there was a bushfire and the stamper and its building all burnt down, and all we're left with today is just the foundations. It's said that £1 million worth of gold was crushed through this stamper, so the ore that was crushed. Now, if we're going back, we'd probably assume that it was probably about £3 an ounce. So you can just imagine how much gold was found in this actual district. And I suppose you can still find a few more flakes today. So what we have here is the remains of the old cyanide vats. So around the late 1920s to the late 1950s, what they would do is they'd purchase the sands and the waste from the actual stamper, and they'd soak these the waste in these cyanide vats for 60 to 70 hours, and then what would end up happening is they'd siphon off all the liquid. They'd be left with some black powdery sludge, and then what they would do is further refine that by smelting it and get some gold. So this was around the Depression, and there was at least 3 different parties, I think, that purchased this stuff from the state as their waste, and they'd get it out of the weir there. So yeah, I suppose everyone loses a little bit of gold, and there's always someone there to try and recover some. Okay, so what we're looking at here in this area are the water races and the sluicing that was done. So these water races went along with the creek and along this trail that I'm walking on today. So the sluicing races were dug. Sluicing activity was done by the Chinese miners who camped and worked these gullies. So back then, the new government regulations in 1854 allowed for lease over goldfields previously worked by the original diggers on individual claims. This allowed the sluicing parties to work all the mullock heaps that were thrown away, and apparently considerable amounts of gold was found in those mullocks. And if we know anything about the Chinese and how efficient they were, I'm pretty sure they probably didn't really leave anything behind. So the creek is just down there. It's pretty heavily vegetated, and I don't have gaiters on, so I won't be walking down there. But if I can get somewhere, I will and show you. I'll continue along the trail and we'll have a look what comes up next. Alright, I've made it down to the creek. There's some pools of water. Considerable amount of bedrock here. But pretty much all the way along this creek it is like this. There's bedrock. You can probably see down here, and this is probably all the tailings from their sluice runs, these side banks. So I would imagine pretty much all the gold that was here and that possibly could be in those banks, that if you've seen it in another creek, isn't here anymore. And when we look at this side, you'll see the same thing. The bedrock just continues, the rock continues and goes all the way down. I had to find somewhere safe, and what I meant by that, there's a animal trail just here, so I could see everything. Trying to walk through that stuff, even though we're out of summer, it's still warm and those snakes are active. So this area here, this whole area was underwater, and it's come from the sea level, and the ground has folded up through fault lines, creating this mountain range, and also brought up the quartz and then the quartz seams, and that's why this creek held some gold in it. And there was some mines nearby, very close by to here. But one thing that has occurred, because I don't know if you can see up that hill, the land is pretty much got grass and that's about it. So this creek here would have been flowing constantly, but because of the land clearing in the area, this creek has pretty much stopped flowing. Even though it would probably slow down during the summer months, it now comes to a complete stop. So they're the means of progress, I suppose. Alright, it's a little bit hard to tell, but you should be able to see just on the other side there a bank. And so between 1850 and the 1930s, what they would do is they'd dam this creek up. The creek's just down lower, just down the bottom there. It's hard to tell with all these bushes and stuff, but they'd build the water race. So they'd build the dam, they'd build the water race, and then they'd also build a sluice or a long tom and control the flow so that they could dig the ground around here. I might try and get down there a little bit, just so I can show you a bit more of this bank. It's a bit tricky to see, but you should be able to sort of see some clay appearing. There's a lot of trees and stuff here, but just over there you should be able to see some clay and the ground where they've dug. Also, they would have dug both sides, but it's difficult to see on camera. But there's a large flat area all the way through compared to where the creek actually runs, and obviously they would have had their dam and then the water course and a sluice set up somewhere, and all this area that you can sort of see that's all flat down there, obviously that's been dug away, because when we look up this way, the hillside goes up there, and when you're looking over this side as well, the hill is going up all the way right up there to the top. That's very, very much had all the trees removed, and this side, because it is a bit of a park, but you need permission to get in there, and there is some private properties as well, and it's protected for the vegetation and stuff, so we can't go right up that side. And this track continues along here. I'll take you down a little bit further, and then I'll finish up. Hope you have enjoyed the video. Something a little bit different from me, but there has been a lot of piqued interest of this area, and it's not until you come out yourself and you look around, you look at the type of ground. I've been for at least the last 10 years learning about my local history and coming out and exploring places like this to get an understanding at the type of ground they were digging back in the day, possibly finding new areas with similar geological like that I'm surrounded by here. Like, you know, you've got to look at your ground, and if they were finding gold in a certain type of geology, then more than likely, if you can find that geology somewhere else that's in that area or the gold region, because this is a fairly large gold region out here in Melbourne, you're possibly going to find some gold. You obviously got to check and make sure that it's not an exempt creek or river, but just because it's not on a map doesn't mean they didn't find gold there. And what wasn't worth prospecting for them is well and truly worth prospecting for the hobby miner. But yeah, look, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for stopping by and having a look, and we should be out prospecting again in a couple of weeks. I might get out beforehand during the week, but we're not getting out to our magical place for a little while. So this is probably the water race here, because this isn't the creek. I'll walk down here and I'll sort of show you. So the creek is down past this, but this is possibly the water race here. that they dug so that they could feed their sluice, and they'd have the creek dammed off. They'd have a big pool. They'd run the water down through here and be able to control that so they had enough flow and not too much, and capture their gold. Alright, I'm going to leave it there, and until the next time guys, I'll see you all later.